The sky above Kalari Prime burned with the light of dying ships. Commander Zixthar stood in the command center, watching the display screens flicker with bad news. Another defense satellite had just been destroyed. Another hole in their protection. The Drakvon Empire was winning, and everyone knew it. Zixthar was tall even for a Kalari, with dark blue chitinous skin that reflected the warning lights around the room. 4 arms worked across different control panels, trying to coordinate what remained of their defense force. It was not enough. It had never been enough. 3 weeks ago, the Drakvon fleet had appeared in their system. 50 warships, maybe more. They had surrounded the planet before anyone could escape. The first demand had been simple: surrender or die. The Kalari had refused. They were a peaceful people, traders and artists, but they would not become slaves. So the Drakvon had begun their assault. The colony's distress signals had gone out immediately. Calls for help broadcast across every known frequency, reaching out to the Galactic Council, to nearby systems, to anyone who might listen. The Kalari had been members of the galactic community for 200 years. They had friends, trading partners, allies who had sworn mutual defense pacts. Surely someone would come. No one came. The Galactic Council had debated for days before issuing a statement of concern. Concern, but no action. The major powers argued over jurisdiction and protocol. Some said intervention would set a dangerous precedent. Others worried about economic consequences. A few spoke passionately about helping, but when it came time to vote, they voted no. The Kalari would have to face their fate alone. Zixthar remembered the day the Council's final message arrived. We regret that we cannot provide military assistance at this time. We encourage both parties to pursue diplomatic solutions. Empty words from safe places spoken by people who would sleep soundly while the Kalari died. The first bombardment had killed 30,000 civilians. The capital city's eastern district had simply ceased to exist, vaporized by plasma fire from orbit. Zixthar had family there, had, past tense, the grammar of loss. Now the Drakvon were preparing for their final push. Their flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Iron Fang, hung in orbit like a dark moon. Its commander, Admiral Krathval, had been broadcasting messages to the surface. He enjoyed talking about what would come next. The survivors would be sorted. The strong would be taken as slaves. The weak would be eliminated. The children would be raised to forget they were ever Kalari. It would be efficient, he said. Almost merciful. The defense grid was failing. Zixthar could see the numbers dropping in real time. Shield strength at 30%, 25%. The orbital platforms were gone. The few remaining fighter craft were running on emergency power. Down on the surface, the defense forces had gathered in the command center's underground bunker. 500 soldiers, mostly volunteers who had never trained for war. They carried whatever weapons could be found. Old mining lasers, improvised explosives, desperation. Zixthar made the hardest decision of their life. They opened a channel to all remaining defenders. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. My friends, Zixthar began, their voice steady despite everything. You have fought with honor. You have protected your families and your home with everything you have. But the time has come to face the truth. Our shields will fail within the hour. The Drakvon will land their troops. They will take this command center and everything else. A young soldier named Pelix spoke up from across the room. Then we fight them here. We make them pay for every step. Others echoed the sentiment. Voices rose in agreement. They would not surrender. They would not make it easy. Zixthar felt something break inside their chest. Pride and grief mixing together. Yes, we fight. We show them that the Kalari do not bow. When the galaxy remembers this day, they will know we stood tall. What Zixthar did not say was that the galaxy would likely not remember. The Drakvon would write the history. They would say the Kalari had been criminals or rebels. They would justify everything, and the galaxy would accept it because accepting was easier than acting. Above the planet, Admiral Krathval sat in his command throne, watching the shield numbers drop. He was pleased. This had taken longer than expected, but the result was never in doubt. The Kalari had no significant military, no powerful allies, no hope. He opened a broadcast to the planet one final time. People of Kalari Prime, hear me? Your shields are failing. Your defenders are exhausted. No help is coming. The galaxy has abandoned you. Surrender now and some of you may live. Resist and you will all die. You have 1 hour to decide. In the command center, they heard the message. No one spoke. No one needed to. They had already decided weeks ago. Zixthar moved to the weapons station. Their defense grid might be failing, but they still had ground-based cannons. Not enough to win. Not enough to even hurt the Drakvon fleet significantly, but enough to send a message. Enough to die fighting. The shield percentage dropped below 20, 15, 10. The outer sections were already failing, exposing parts of the planet to direct fire. Evacuation shelters reported damage. More casualties. More names added to the list of the dead. Zixthar thought about the children hiding in those shelters. Thought about the parents holding them tight, trying to shield them from the sounds of explosions. Thought about the teachers and doctors and artists who would never create another thing. The poets whose words would be forgotten. The musicians whose songs would fade into silence. 5%. The main shield was flickering now, visible from the surface as ripples of blue light across the sky. Krathvol gave the order. All ships charge primary weapons. Target the command center. On my mark, we finish this. The Iron Fang's main cannon began to glow, a massive buildup of energy that would punch through the failing shields and destroy the bunker in a single shot. Around it, the other Drakvon ships aligned their weapons. Dozens of targeting lasers painted the ground where Zixthar stood. 1%. The shield collapsed. Krathvol smiled. Fire. And then something impossible happened. Space itself tore open. The weapon's discharge never came. Every sensor on every ship screamed warnings at the same moment. Space between the Drakvon fleet and Kalari Prime was doing something wrong. Reality itself seemed to twist and fold, creating patterns that hurt to look at. Admiral Krathvol stood from his command throne, his scaled face showing confusion for the first time in years. Report, what is happening? His science officer, a thin creature with too many eyes, worked frantically at the sensor station. Unknown spatial anomaly, sir. Energy readings are off all scales. Something is opening a passage through space itself. A jump point? Someone is arriving? Krathvol's confusion shifted to anger. Who dares interrupt? But this was no ordinary jump point. The Drakvon used wormhole technology for faster-than-light travel, creating small stable tunnels through space. This was different. Bigger. Violent. Like someone had taken a knife to the fabric of space and simply cut it open. The vortex expanded, swirling with colors that should not exist. Lightning arced across its surface. The gravitational distortion was so strong that several Drakvon ships had to adjust their positions to avoid being pulled in. Then something emerged. The ship was massive. Not as large as the Iron Fang, but substantial. Its design was like nothing in the known galaxy. Sharp angles and smooth curves combined in ways that made no aesthetic sense to any known species. The hull was dark gray, almost black, with strange symbols painted along the side in white. Weapons bristled from every surface. Armor plating overlapped in patterns that suggested whoever built this had learned hard lessons about combat. The vortex collapsed behind it, space sealing itself shut. The ship hung there between the Drakvon fleet and Kalari Prime, running lights glowing red. On Kalari Prime, Zixthar stared at the display screen. The command center had fallen silent. Every eye was locked on the image of this impossible vessel. What is that? Pelix whispered. Is that one of ours? No, Zixthar said quietly. I have never seen anything like it. The Drakvon fleet maintained their weapons lock on the planet, but now half their sensors were pointed at the newcomer. Krathvol ordered his communications officer to hail the vessel. Unknown ship, you have entered a Drakvon military operation. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. For a long moment there was no response. Then the communication systems activated across every frequency simultaneously. The voice that came through was deep and steady, speaking in perfect galactic standard with an accent no one recognized. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Starship Defiance. You will cease your attack immediately and withdraw from Kalari space. The message repeated in several other languages, including the Drakvon military code. Whoever this was, they had done their homework. Krathvol processed the words. United Nations. Human. His research officers had briefed him on humans once years ago. They were from the far edge of explored space. A primitive species kept under quarantine by ancient Galactic Council protocols. They had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. They had no seat on the council. They were nobody. You are human. Krathvol spoke the word like it was something distasteful. Your species is under quarantine. You have no authority here. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The human captain's response was immediate. The only consequence that matters is what happens if you fire another shot. Leave now. This is your only warning. Krathval laughed. His crew joined in. A single ship crewed by primitives threatening a fleet of 50 Drakvon warships. It was absurd. In the command center on Kalari Prime, Zixthar felt something they had not felt in weeks. Hope. Fragile and desperate, but hope nonetheless. Someone had come. It did not matter who they were. Someone had answered their call. Can they help us? Pelix asked. One ship against 50. Zixthar did not answer. They did not know. But they watched the screen with every ounce of attention they had. Krathval opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships maintain position. Battlecruiser Wing 7, destroy that vessel. Show these humans what happens when primitives interfere in Drakvon affairs. 5 Drakvon battlecruisers broke formation, moving toward the human ship. Each one was larger than the Defiance. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. They spread out in a standard attack pattern, surrounding the target from multiple angles. The lead battlecruiser charged its plasma cannons. The Drakvon captain gave the order to fire. What happened next would be analyzed and debated for years to come. The human ship moved. Not the slow maneuvering of capital ships, but fast. Incredibly fast. It accelerated in a direction that should have been impossible for something so large, spinning on an axis that ignored momentum. The plasma fire that should have struck center mass missed entirely, passing through empty space. The Defiance fired back. Not plasma, but something else. Solid projectiles launched at ridiculous speeds, accelerated by magnetic rails to velocities that made them nearly unstoppable. They struck the lead battlecruiser's shields and punched straight through. The Drakvon shields were military grade, designed to withstand sustained bombardment. They should have held. They did not. The projectiles tore through the shield as if it was not there, then ripped into the armor plating underneath. Explosions blossomed along the battlecruiser's hull. Atmosphere vented into space. The other 4 battlecruisers opened fire together, thinking coordinated assault would succeed where individual effort had failed. The Defiance spun again, that impossible movement that defied physics. Point defense systems activated along its hull. Thousands of small guns tracking incoming fire with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Plasma bolts were intercepted and vaporized. Missiles were shot down before they could arm. Then the human ship fired again. Different weapons this time. Beams of pure energy that burned with colors the Drakvon had never seen. They struck 2 battlecruisers simultaneously, cutting through armor like it was paper. One ship lost its main reactor. The other simply broke in half. On the Iron Fang, Krathval stood frozen. His crew stared at their displays in disbelief. 5 battlecruisers had engaged the human ship. 3 were already disabled or destroyed. The other 2 were breaking off, trying to retreat. The Defiance let them go. It maneuvered back to its original position between the Drakvon fleet and Kalari Prime. A clear message. Try again if you dare. Captain Morrison's voice came across the channel again, still calm despite what had just happened. Next warning comes with more force. Leave now. Zixthar realized they were standing. Their forearms were spread wide, mandibles open in an expression of pure shock. Around them, the command center had erupted in voices. Questions, exclamations, disbelief. The humans had just taken on 5 Drakvon battlecruisers and won. Easily. No damage to their ship. No apparent effort. Pelix grabbed Zixthar's arm. Commander, they opened a channel to us. The humans are calling us directly. Zixthar moved to the communication station with shaking limbs. They activated the channel. This is Commander Zixthar of Kalari Prime. Who are you? The human captain's face appeared on the screen for the first time. He was young for a ship commander, with short dark hair and steady eyes. His uniform was simple but clean. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was busy with activity. Commander, my name is Jake Morrison. I apologize for our late arrival. We came as fast as we could after receiving your distress call. Hold your position and keep your people safe. We will handle the Drakvon. But there are 50 ships, Zixthar said. You are alone. Captain Morrison smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. Commander, we did not come here to lose. Trust me. Admiral Krathval stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. 3 battlecruisers destroyed or disabled in under 2 minutes. By a single ship. Crewed by a species that should not even have military-grade shields. His tactical officer spoke with barely controlled fear in his voice. "Sir, should we withdraw?" "Absolutely not." Krathvoll's pride would not allow retreat. Not from humans. Not from anyone. That was a lucky engagement. They caught us by surprise. Now we know what they can do. All ships battle formation Delta surround that vessel. Concentrate all fire on a single point. Overwhelm their defenses. The Drakvon fleet moved into position. 45 warships arranged themselves in a sphere around the Defiance. Weapons charged and ready. It was a formation designed for maximum firepower concentration. Nothing could survive it. Nothing. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Morrison watched the enemy fleet maneuver. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, called out positions from her station. "They are trying to surround us, sir." "Classic overwhelming force doctrine." Morrison nodded. "Kyle, ready all weapon systems." "Chris, prepare evasive pattern Morrison 7. His weapons officer, Commander Kyle Bennett, worked his controls with practiced efficiency. All railguns loaded. Missile tubes armed. Energy weapons at full charge. "We are ready, sir." Lieutenant Chris Palmer, the helm officer, grinned from his position. "Morrison 7, aye. They are not going to like this." Morrison touched his communication panel. "All hands, this is the captain." Battle stations. "We are about to show the Drakvon why you do not mess with humans. Engineering, I need everything you have got." From deep in the ship, the chief engineer responded. "You will have it, sir." Reactors are running hot. All systems optimal. The Drakvon fired. 45 ships, hundreds of weapons, all releasing their fury at the exact same moment. The space around the Defiance turned into a storm of plasma and missiles and energy beams. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Defiance moved before the shots arrived. Chris Palmer's hands flew across his controls, executing a flight pattern that should have been impossible for a vessel of that size. The ship rolled, twisted, and accelerated in 3 directions at once. The crew felt nothing, held in place by inertial dampeners that absorbed forces which would have turned any other species into liquid. 90% of the Drakvon fire missed entirely, striking empty space where the Defiance had been milliseconds before. The remaining 10% struck the human ship's shields and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed and redirected, feeding back into the ship's power systems. Kyle Bennett did not wait for orders. He fired back immediately. Railgun rounds streaked through space at incredible velocities. Each one struck a different Drakvon ship. Shields that had stood against sustained bombardment before crumpled like paper. Armor that should have stopped anything shattered. The missiles followed. They were small and fast, equipped with targeting systems that could track a moving target across light minutes of distance. They wove through defensive fire like they were alive, finding weak points in armor and burrowing deep before detonating. 4 Drakvon cruisers went dark. Power systems destroyed. 2 destroyers lost their engines and drifted helplessly. A battlecruiser took a railgun round through its bridge, killing the command crew instantly. Amy Rodriguez called out updates in a steady voice. "Enemy formation breaking. They are trying to regroup." Tracking 18 destroyed or disabled vessels, 27 still combat effective. Morrison leaned forward in his command chair. "Chris, take us into their formation." "Kyle, switch to close-range weapons. Let us show them what a real fight looks like." What followed was something the galaxy had never seen before. The Defiance dove into the middle of the Drakvon fleet, moving between ships with impossible precision. At these close ranges, the human advantages became even more apparent. Their targeting systems were faster. Their weapons were more accurate. Their ability to predict enemy movement was almost supernatural. Kyle Bennett fired the energy weapons, beams that burned through hulls like hot knives through butter. The technology was something humanity had developed in secret, based on principles the rest of the galaxy had deemed too dangerous or too difficult. Humans apparently disagreed. A Drakvon destroyer tried to ram the Defiance, thinking close contact would negate the human advantages. Chris Palmer saw it coming 3 seconds before the Drakvon captain gave the order. He adjusted course slightly, letting the destroyer pass within meters of the hull. Kyle fired point-blank into the enemy ship's reactor as it went by. The destroyer exploded, taking 2 nearby frigates with it. On Kalari Prime, the entire command center watched in stunned silence. The tactical display showed the impossible. 1 human ship, surrounded by dozens of enemy vessels, was systematically destroying them all. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. Pellis spoke quietly. What are they? Zixthar had no answer. The humans moved like they had been born in space. They fought like war was in their blood. Every shot was precise. Every maneuver was perfect. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. On the Iron Fang, Krathoval finally understood what was happening. He was losing. Not just the battle, but completely. Utterly. His fleet was being destroyed by a single enemy ship. All vessels, focus fire on the human ship. Ignore casualties. All weapons, continuous fire. Do not let them rest. The remaining Drakvon ships obeyed, pouring everything they had at the Defiance. The space around the human vessel turned into a solid wall of weapons fire. There was no way to dodge it all. No way to survive. The Defiance proved him wrong again. Its shields blazed with absorbed energy, glowing so bright they could be seen from the planet's surface. The point defense systems worked at maximum capacity, destroying incoming missiles and deflecting energy beams. The ship took damage, yes, some shots got through, but not enough. Never enough, and the Defiance kept firing back, kept moving, kept fighting. Morrison opened a channel to the Drakvon flagship. Admiral Krathful, you have lost. Surrender your remaining ships and you will be allowed to leave. Continue fighting and I will destroy every last one of you. Krathful snarled into the communication. Humans do not dictate terms to the Drakvon Empire. We will crush you. You are welcome to try, Morrison said calmly. Amy, show him what we have been holding back. Lieutenant Rodriguez activated systems that had been waiting in reserve. From the Defiance's hull, new weapons emerged. Torpedo tubes larger than anything they had used so far. The torpedoes that launched were different, faster, more powerful. They struck the Iron Fang's shields and detonated. The explosion was controlled, precise, designed not to kill but to disable. An electromagnetic pulse washed over the flagship, frying every electronic system that was not specifically hardened against such attacks. The Iron Fang went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, but the main power was gone. Weapons were offline. Engines were dead. Life support was running on backup systems. Morrison's voice came through on the emergency channel. Admiral, your ship is disabled but intact. Your crew is alive. I could have destroyed you completely. I chose not to. Think about that. The same torpedoes launched at other ships. One by one, the remaining Drakvon vessels went dark. Not destroyed. Disabled. The human ship had the power to annihilate them all but was choosing mercy instead. Within 15 minutes, the Drakvon fleet was finished. 38 ships disabled, drifting in orbit. 12 destroyed completely. The Iron Fang floating helplessly among them. The Defiance maneuvered back to its position between the fleet and the planet. Minor damage marked its hull, but it was still fully operational, still ready to fight if needed. Morrison opened a channel to all Drakvon ships. This is over. You came here to conquer a peaceful people. You found resistance instead. I am offering you the chance to leave alive. Repair your ships. Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the Kalari are under human protection now. Any future attacks will be met with the same response. Krathval sat in his darkened command center, rage and humiliation burning through him. But he was not stupid. The humans had beaten him completely. If he refused and they decided to destroy his fleet, no one would blame them. He would die here, and the Empire would learn nothing. We accept, he said through gritted teeth. We will withdraw. Good choice, Morrison replied. We will provide you with basic repair equipment, enough to get your ships moving again. You have 24 hours to leave Kalari space. After that, we start shooting again. On Kalari Prime, Zixthar fell back into their chair, all forearms trembling. They had witnessed something impossible. One human ship had defeated an entire Drakvon fleet, and now those humans were offering mercy to their enemies. Captain Morrison's face appeared on their communication screen again. Commander Zixthar, the immediate threat is over. How are your people? Zixthar struggled to find words. We are alive. Thanks to you. Captain Morrison, how did you do that? Morrison smiled. We have had a lot of practice. I will explain everything soon. For now, let us focus on helping your people. My medical team is standing by. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 species shouted over each other, demanding answers, explanations, and action. The emergency session had been called within minutes of the first reports from Kalari Prime. Counselor Vexthor of the Talani Collective banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. His translator struggled to keep up with the dozens of languages being spoken at once. Order. Order. We will address this situation calmly. Calmly. Counselor Gren of the Valter world stood from his seat, his wings spread in agitation. The humans have broken quarantine. They have interfered in a military operation. They have attacked Drakvon vessels. This is an act of war. Another counselor, a crystalline being named Shard, chimed in with a voice like breaking glass. The quarantine protocols have been in place for 300 years. The humans were deemed too dangerous to contact. Now we see we were correct. On the viewing screen at the center of the chamber, recordings from Kalari Prime played on repeat. The Defiance emerging from the vortex. The battle with the Drakvon fleet. The systematic destruction of warship after warship. It was footage that had already spread across the entire galaxy within hours. Counselor Vexithor finally restored enough order to speak. We must issue an immediate demand that the humans withdraw from Kalari space. They must return to their quarantine zone and face consequences for this violation. What consequences? The question came from Counselor Mira, one of the few who had voted to help the Kalari. We have no ships near Kalari Prime. The humans destroyed a Drakvon fleet in less than an hour. What exactly do you propose we do? The chamber fell silent. It was the question no one wanted to address. The humans had demonstrated military capability far beyond what anyone had believed possible. Their technology was advanced in ways that made no sense. They had moved through space using methods that should not work. They had weapons that bypassed shields designed to stop anything. Vexthor composed himself. We draft a resolution. We demand their immediate withdrawal. We threaten sanctions and potential military action if they do not comply. And if they refuse? Mira asked. They will not dare refuse the full authority of the Galactic Council. The resolution was drafted and sent within the hour. It was formal and stern, invoking ancient laws and treaties. It demanded the humans leave Kalari space immediately. It threatened dire consequences. It was everything the Council could say to assert their authority. The response came back faster than expected. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiance was busy with activity, but his attention was fully on the camera. When he spoke, his voice was polite but firm. Galactic Council, I have received your resolution. I want to make sure I understand correctly. You are demanding that we abandon the Kalari people, who are still recovering from an attack that killed thousands. You want us to ignore their plea for help and return to isolation, and you are threatening us if we do not comply. Is that accurate? Vexthor responded immediately. You have violated quarantine protocols. You have interfered in matters beyond your authority. The Council's laws must be respected. Morrison nodded slowly. I see. Let me tell you what we received 3 weeks ago. A distress signal from Kalari Prime. They were under attack. They were dying. They asked the galaxy for help. They specifically asked the Council for help. And what did you do? The Council chamber was silent. You debated, Morrison continued. You discussed protocols and procedures. You worried about precedents and politics. And while you debated, the Kalari died. 30,000 in the first bombardment alone. Men, women, and children vaporized while you talked about jurisdiction. Counselor Gren stood angrily. The Council must consider many factors before committing to military action. We cannot simply rush in wherever there is conflict. Why not? Morrison's question was simple and devastating. Why can you not help people who are dying? What is the point of your council if not to protect those who cannot protect themselves? Vexthor tried to reassert control. You do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. There are procedures, treaties, agreements that must be honored. Morrison's expression hardened. With respect, Counselor, we received a distress call. We answered it. If your laws say we should ignore people dying, then your laws are wrong. Defiance out. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted again. Some counselors were outraged at the disrespect. Others were quietly thoughtful. A few, like Counselor Mira, looked almost relieved. The recording of Morrison's response spread across the galaxy faster than the battle footage had. Within hours, it was being broadcast on every major news network, translated into hundreds of languages, discussed in homes and offices and ships across known space. On Kalari Prime, Zixthar watched the recording with something close to awe. The human captain had looked the most powerful political body in the galaxy in the eye and told them they were wrong. No one did that. No one dared. The command center was still functioning as an emergency coordination point, but the mood had changed completely. Hope had replaced despair. People worked with energy instead of resignation. Outside, civilian rescue operations were underway with assistance from human personnel, who had beamed down from the Defiance. Dr. Lisa Grant supervised the medical teams. She was efficient and kind. Traits that the Kalari were quickly learning characterized most humans. Her teams had set up field hospitals using technology that could heal injuries the Kalari medical knowledge said were untreatable. Pelix approached Zixthar with a datapad. "Commander, you should see this." Messages are coming in from across the galaxy. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Zixthar took the datapad and scrolled through the messages. They were from other species, other colonies and systems and worlds. Some offered support and supplies. Some thanked the humans for doing what the Council would not. Some asked how to contact the humans directly. One message stood out. It was from a small mining colony in the Outer Rim, a place called Benton Station. They had been having problems with raiders for years. The Council had done nothing. They were asking if the humans might help them too. "What do we tell them?" Pelix asked. Zixthar thought about Captain Morrison, about his steady voice and clear principles. Forward the message to the Defiance. Let the humans decide. On the bridge of the Defiance, Morrison read through similar messages. Amy Rodriguez was compiling them into categories: requests for help, offers of alliance, questions about human intentions, and a growing number of angry messages from governments allied with the Drakvon or loyal to the Council. "Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth." Lieutenant Danny Torres called from the science station. "Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you." Morrison nodded. "Put her through. Private channel." The screen switched to show Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of the United Nations Space Force. She was older than Morrison, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She sat in her office at Fleet Command, the Earth visible through the window behind her. "Captain Morrison, I have been watching the situation develop. You have created quite a stir." "Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that." Hayes smiled slightly. "Do not apologize for doing the right thing. Your actions have put humanity on the galactic stage whether the Council likes it or not. Fleet Command has decided to support you fully. I am bringing the Second Fleet to Kalari Prime. We will establish a permanent presence and make it clear that humanity is no longer isolated." Morrison felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Admiral. I was hoping we would not have to do this alone." "You are never alone, Jake. That is the point. The Council has had centuries to build a galaxy based on their rules. Those rules failed the Kalari. They failed countless others who were too weak to defend themselves and too far from help. We are going to change that. The Council will not accept it easily. No, they will not. But they do not have a choice anymore. The quarantine is over. Humanity is taking its seat at the table. And if the Council does not like it, they can try to stop us." Hayes paused. "Though I suspect after seeing what you did to the Drakvon fleet, most of them will think twice about that." The transmission ended and Morrison sat back in his chair. Around him, the bridge crew continued their work. They had known this moment would come eventually. Humanity had been preparing for it for decades. They had watched the galaxy from a distance, studying and learning. They had seen the corruption and the indifference. They had seen strong species prey on the weak while the Council debated. They had seen people die while politicians protected their own interests. So they had built their fleet in secret, developed their technology beyond what anyone thought possible, trained their people for the day when they would step out of the shadows and say enough. That day had come. Kyle Bennett spoke up from his station. "Sir, the Drakvon fleet is beginning repairs. They should be able to leave the system within the time frame you gave them." "Good. Let them go home and tell their empire what happened. Let them spread the word." Amy Rodriguez looked over from her station. "What word is that, sir?" Morrison smiled. "That there is a new power in the galaxy. One that will not stand by and watch innocent people die. One that answers calls for help. Let them know that the age of bullying the weak is over." The sun rose over Kalari Prime for the first time in weeks, without the shadow of enemy warships blocking its light. The Drakvon fleet had departed during the night, limping away on emergency power with their pride shattered and their admiral silent. The Defiance remained in orbit, a guardian watching over the planet below. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the transport beam chamber, preparing to visit the surface. Dr. Lisa Grant had already been down there for hours, coordinating medical relief. Commander Kyle Bennett was organizing supply distribution. Now it was Morrison's turn to meet the people they had saved face to face. Lieutenant Chris Palmer worked the transport controls. Coordinates locked on the Kalari Command Center. "Ready when you are, sir." Morrison straightened his uniform and nodded. "Energize." The world dissolved into light and reformed a moment later. Morrison found himself standing in a large room carved from stone, reinforced with metal beams. The Kalari Command Center. Dozens of beings stopped what they were doing to stare at him. Tall insectoid figures with blue chitinous skin and 4 arms. Their compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns. One of them stepped forward. Commander Zixthar. Morrison recognized them from their previous communications. They were imposing even by Kalari standards, but their body language showed respect rather than threat. "Captain Morrison," Zixthar said in Galactic Standard, their translator device rendering their clicking speech into words. "Welcome to Kalari Prime. I wish we could have met under better circumstances." Morrison extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Zixthar studied it for a moment, then reached out with one of their 4 hands to grasp it carefully. The grip was gentle, mindful of the difference in their physiologies. "Commander, I am glad we arrived in time. How are your people?" Zixthar gestured for Morrison to follow them through the command center. As they walked, Kalari workers stopped to watch the human pass. Some touched their chests in what Morrison guessed was a gesture of respect or gratitude. "We have casualties still being treated, but your Dr. Grant says most will recover. The civilian shelters held despite the bombardment. We lost far fewer than we feared." Zixthar's voice carried the weight of grief even through the translator, though far more than we should have. "The Council's inaction has cost us dearly." They emerged from the underground facility onto the planet's surface. Morrison stopped, taking in the sight. The city stretched before him, and the damage was extensive. Buildings reduced to rubble. Craters where neighborhoods had been. Smoke still rising from some areas. But among the destruction he saw life. Kalari moving through the streets, clearing debris, helping each other. Human personnel working alongside them, distinguishable by their different shapes and the blue uniforms they wore. "Your people are resilient," Morrison said quietly. "We had no choice but to be. But resilience has its limits. We were hours from complete defeat when you arrived." Zixthar turned to face him directly. "Captain, I must ask the question that everyone in the galaxy is asking. Why did you come? You owed us nothing. Your species was unknown to us, yet you risked your ship and your crew to save us." Morrison had known this question would come. He had prepared an answer, but now standing in the ruins of a city that had nearly been erased, the prepared words felt insufficient. He decided on the truth instead. "Where I come from, Commander, we have a saying. We leave no one behind. It started as a military principle. You do not abandon your soldiers on the battlefield. But it grew into something bigger. It became a philosophy, an identity." He looked across the damaged city. "Humans have a history of conflict. We fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years. We know what it means to call for help and have no one answer. We know what it feels like to be abandoned. So you answered our call because you understood our situation? Partly, but also because it was right. We have been watching the galaxy for longer than your council knows. We have seen how things work out here. The strong dominate. The weak suffer. And the council talks but rarely acts. We decided that if we were going to join the galactic community, we would do it on our terms. We would be the ones who answer the calls for help." Zixthar was quiet for a long moment. "The council will not forgive this easily. You have embarrassed them, shown their weakness. They will see you as a threat," Morrison nodded. "I know. We have been preparing for that possibility. Admiral Hayes is bringing more ships. We will establish a presence here and in other systems that need protection. The Council can accept it or oppose it. Either way, we are not going back into isolation." They walked through the city together, Morrison asking questions about Kalari culture and history. Zixthar explained their society, their values, their peaceful nature that had made them such easy targets. The Kalari were traders and artists, philosophers and scientists. They had never wanted to be warriors. They had trusted the galactic community to protect them. That trust had nearly destroyed them. As they turned a corner, they encountered a group of Kalari children being led by an adult. The children stopped and stared at Morrison with wide eyes. They had never seen a human before. He was strange to them, with his flat face and only 2 arms and skin that was not blue. One child, braver than the others, approached slowly. They reached out with a small hand and touched Morrison's arm, fascinated by the different texture. Morrison stayed very still, letting the child satisfy their curiosity. The child looked up at him and spoke in their own language. Zixthar translated. They want to know if you are a warrior from the old stories. The legends say that warriors come from the stars when people need them most. Morrison knelt down to the child's level. I am just a person who believes in helping others. But I promise you this, no one will hurt your people while we are here. You are safe now. The child did not understand his words, but they understood his tone. They smiled, showing small mandibles, and then ran back to the other children. The group moved on, the children chattering excitedly about the strange alien who had saved them. They will remember this day for the rest of their lives, Zixthar said. So will we all. The day humanity revealed itself to save a people no one else would protect. Morrison stood. It is not just about you, Commander. Every species that was watching, wondering if anyone would stand up to the Drakvon or the Council or any of the other powers that abused their position. They saw what happened here. They know now that someone will answer. They made their way to one of the field hospitals Dr. Grant had established. Inside, Kalari injured were being treated with a combination of human and Kalari medical technology. Grant moved between beds with practiced efficiency, her team following her lead. She looked up as Morrison entered. Captain, good timing. I wanted to show you something. She led him to a bed where a Kalari lay with serious injuries. This one was caught in a building collapse. Massive internal damage. By their medical standards, untreatable. We used our cellular regeneration tech. They will make a full recovery. The injured Kalari looked at Morrison and spoke. Zixthar translated again. They say they owe you their life. They ask how they can repay such a debt. Morrison shook his head. No debt. Just get better and help rebuild your world. That is payment enough. As they left the hospital, Zixthar received a communication. They listened for a moment, then turned to Morrison with an expression that might have been surprise. Captain, you should return to your ship. There is news from your fleet. Morrison was transported back to the Defiance immediately. On the bridge, his crew was gathered around the main display. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up as he entered. Sir, Admiral Hayes has arrived, and she did not come alone. The display showed space around Kalari Prime. The Defiance had been joined by dozens of other human warships, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and at the center, the massive bulk of the fleet carrier UNS Enterprise. It was a show of force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Admiral Hayes's face appeared on the communication screen. Captain Morrison, I thought you might like some company. I brought the Second Fleet, all 37 ships. Morrison felt a surge of pride. It is good to see you, Admiral. The Kalari will be glad to know they have such powerful friends. The Kalari are not the only ones who will be glad. Messages have been pouring in from across the galaxy. Small colonies, independent systems, species that have been bullied by larger powers. They all want to know if humanity will help them too. What do we tell them? Hayes smiled. We tell them yes. We are establishing a new organization, the Human Protection Initiative. Any world or people that asks for our help will receive it. We will not replace the Galactic Council, but we will show them what they should have been doing all along. The plan was ambitious, some would say impossible. But Morrison had learned that humans specialized in doing the impossible. They had gone from primitive tribes to spacefaring civilization in a few thousand years. They had overcome wars, diseases, and disasters that should have destroyed them. They had built a fleet that could challenge any power in the galaxy. Now they would use that power not for conquest, but for protection. Not to dominate, but to defend. The transmission from Admiral Hayes ended and Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew had believed in this mission from the beginning. They had trained for years, knowing that one day, the Galactic Council convened again 3 days after the human fleet arrived at Kalari Prime. The chamber was more crowded than usual, with representatives from species that had not attended a session in years. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Counselor Vexthor called the meeting to order, though the tension in the room made it clear this would not be a normal session. The main display showed live footage of the human fleet in orbit around Kalari Prime. 37 warships arranged in a defensive formation, that sent a clear message. We are here. We are staying. Try to move us. The Council recognizes the severity of this situation, Bexthor began. The humans have not only violated quarantine protocols, but have now established a military presence in sovereign space. This cannot be tolerated. Councillor Mira stood immediately. Sovereign space? The Kalari are an independent species. They have the right to accept protection from whoever they choose. Or have we forgotten that basic principle? The humans were under quarantine for good reason, Councillor Gren argued. They are too aggressive, too warlike. Look at what they did to the Drakvon fleet. They destroyed ships without hesitation. The Drakvon were attacking a civilian population, Mira countered. The humans defended innocent people. That is what we should have done. The debate raged for hours. Some councillors demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for negotiation. A few, mostly representatives from smaller species, openly praised the human intervention. The chamber was divided as it had not been in decades. Finally, Councillor Shard proposed a solution. We should send an official delegation to meet with these humans. Assess their intentions. Determine if they are truly a threat or if accommodation is possible. The motion passed, though barely. A delegation would be sent to Kalari Prime to negotiate with the humans. What those negotiations would achieve, no one could say. On Kalari Prime, reconstruction was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. Human engineers had introduced technology that could rebuild structures in days rather than months. Kalari workers learned quickly, adapting the human methods to their own architectural styles. The scars of battle would remain for years, but the city was coming back to life. Commander Zixthar stood in the reconstructed command center, now serving as a coordination hub for the joint human-Kalari operations. They watched the progress reports with satisfaction. Food distribution was stable. Medical care was reaching everyone who needed it. Power systems were being restored sector by sector. Captain Morrison entered the room, followed by Admiral Hayes. The Admiral had come down from the Enterprise to tour the surface and meet with Kalari leadership. She was shorter than Morrison but carried an authority that made her seem larger. Commander Zixthar, Hayes said with a respectful nod, your people have made remarkable progress. Thanks to your help, Admiral. We would still be sorting through rubble if your teams had not arrived. Zixthar gestured to the displays. But I worry about what comes next. The Council will not accept your presence here indefinitely. Hayes smiled slightly. The Council does not have to accept it. We are not asking their permission. But I understand your concern. You do not want to be caught between humanity and the established galactic powers. Precisely. We are grateful for what you have done. More grateful than we can express. But we are still a small species. We cannot afford to become a battleground. Morrison stepped forward. Commander, that is exactly what we want to prevent. We are not here to start a war. We are here to ensure that what happened to you does not happen to anyone else. The Council had the chance to protect you. They chose politics over lives. We are offering an alternative. Admiral Hayes pulled up a holographic display. We are calling it the Protection Compact. Any species or world that joins agrees to mutual defense. If one member is attacked, all members respond. No politics, no debates, just action. Zixthar studied the display carefully. And what do you ask in return? Cooperation. Trade if you want it, though that is optional. Access to your systems for our ships to refuel and resupply. And a promise that you will help others the way we helped you. The compact is not just about military strength. It is about building a community based on different principles than the Council uses. Principles of action rather than debate. Zixthar said slowly. Of protecting the weak rather than ignoring them. It is appealing. But the Council will see it as a threat to their authority. They are correct, Hayes said bluntly. It is a threat to their authority. But not to galactic peace or stability. If anything, we think it will create more stability. When people know that aggression will be met with immediate resistance, they think twice about attacking their neighbors. A communication came through from orbit. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez's voice was urgent. Admiral, Captain, we have incoming ships. A delegation from the Galactic Council. They are requesting permission to approach. Hayes and Morrison exchanged glances. Let them come, Hayes said. It is time we had this conversation. The Council delegation arrived in a sleek diplomatic vessel, clearly unarmed and broadcasting peaceful intentions. They were brought to the surface under escort. 5 counselors representing different species and political factions. Vexthor led them, his expression carefully neutral. The meeting took place in a restored conference facility, with both human and Kalari representatives present. The counselors sat on one side of the large table, their various body types making for an unusual assembly. Hayes and Morrison sat opposite them, with Zixthar at the head of the table as the host. Vexthor spoke first, his tone formal. Admiral Hayes, Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council acknowledges your actions at Kalari Prime. While we have concerns about your methods, we cannot deny that you saved many lives. We are here to discuss how humanity can be properly integrated into the galactic community. Hayes leaned back in her chair. Counselor, let me be clear about something from the start. We are not asking to be integrated. We are announcing our presence and our intentions. Whether the Council accepts that is up to you. That is unacceptable, Counselor Gren said immediately. The Council has maintained order in the galaxy for thousands of years. You cannot simply decide to ignore that structure. We are not ignoring it, Morrison said calmly. We are working around it. Your structure failed the Kalari. It has failed countless others. We have been watching from our quarantine for decades, and we have seen the pattern. Strong species do what they want. Weak species suffer. The Council talks but rarely acts. We are offering something different. Counselor Mira, who had supported intervention from the beginning, spoke up. Perhaps we should hear what they are proposing before we reject it outright. Hayes explained the protection compact. As she spoke, the counselors' reactions varied. Some looked outraged, others thoughtful. Mira seemed quietly supportive. When Hayes finished, Vexthor spoke carefully. What you are describing is effectively a rival power block. A military alliance that operates outside Council authority. You must understand why this is problematic. I understand that it challenges the way things have been done, Hayes replied. But I would argue that is necessary. The Council has become too slow, too political, too willing to sacrifice the weak to maintain stability. We are not trying to replace you, but we will not stand by and watch people die while you debate. The discussion continued for hours. The counselors argued about protocols and precedents. The humans remained firm on their principles. Zixthar occasionally interjected with the Kalari perspective, reminding everyone that this was not an abstract debate but a matter of life and death. Finally, Counselor Shard proposed a compromise. What if we recognize the Protection Compact as a legitimate organization within the galactic framework? Not a replacement for the Council, but a parallel structure focused on rapid response and defense? It was not perfect. The details would take months to work out. But it was a start, a recognition that humanity could not be forced back into isolation, and that perhaps their approach had merit. As the meeting broke up, Vexthor approached Hayes privately. Admiral, I want you to know that many of us on the Council are not your enemies. We are simply cautious. Humanity has remained hidden for so long. You appear suddenly with advanced technology and military power. You must understand our concerns. Hayes nodded. I do understand, Counselor. But you must understand ours. We watched the Kalari send distress calls for weeks. We watched your Council debate while they died. We could not remain hidden any longer. Sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks. The counselors departed, promising continued dialogue. As their ship left orbit, Morrison stood with Zixthar watching the stars. What do you think will happen now? Zixthar asked. Morrison considered the question. I think things are going to change. Maybe slowly at first, but word is spreading. Other species are reaching out to us, small colonies and independent worlds that have been bullied or ignored. They are asking for protection, for help, and we are going to provide it. The Council will resist. Some will. Others will adapt. The ones who care about doing good will realize we are not their enemies. The ones who only care about power will fight us. But that is a fight we are prepared for. Zixthar touched Morrison's shoulder with one hand, a gesture of friendship in Kalari culture. You said humans